stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Mrs. Williamson?
Here.
Mr. Hudson?
Here.
Mr. Karen?
Here.
Item number 3, I do have an addendum to the agenda on item number 22. To consider an executive session in accordance with ORC 121.22 for the sole purpose of consideration of any of the following matters. It should be employment, investigation of charges, complaints, unless public hearing requested. The matter is required to be kept confidential by federal law or rules or state statutes, and specialized details of security arrangements where disclosure of the matter discussed might reveal information that could be used for the purpose of committing or avoiding prosecution for a violation of the law. So I make a motion to adopt the agenda.
I'll second it.
Discussion? Roll call.
Mrs. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
Mr. Karen?
Yes.
Motion passes. Item number 4, superintendent's report.
Okay, I have a couple updates for you. First of all, we had a district-wide meeting. I did, because I know this is tough to see on the screen, so I did send a printout down to you. You should have the same thing in front of you in terms of printout, so you can read it. We talked about a number of things, and first of all, from the building suggestions, the one thing I could tell you is there's been a great deal of work at the building level to identify some areas where we think we can make some improvements for security. Anything from construction needs, specifically our front entrances. I know we did a revitalization project at Dixon Elementary. Probably could have thought about that maybe a little bit differently in terms of the front entrance if we were back into that spot again. However, you know, that might be one of the things that we look at in the future is, you know, how do we steer people from the front entrance who come to our buildings into the office in a different way than what we have right now. So we did ask for some quotes and some drawings and things like that, and you know, at about $10,000, which isn't a tremendously high price considering the scope of work that would be asked to be done, there could be some changes to that front entrance of Dixon. You know, and without getting into the changes, the recommendations, the details of each building, you know, a great deal of work has gone into it at each building level. I think it's been very reflective. I think we've been able to look at some of the materials that we might be absent that aren't terribly costly, from anything from, gosh, and I'll go back. Let me see if I can go down here. Here is one of the examples for a solution for an inside door, which is really sort of cost effective. You know, this could be a very simple fix for 2 of our buildings. The middle school unfortunately has door knobs, so I don't know whether or not that will be an option for the middle school building, but for 2 of our buildings, this looks like it could be an option. You know, I don't see a real cost issue with these, but these are some of the things that our committees are looking at to try to remedy some solutions for lockdown, which is part of our current safety process. I really think this was an excellent solution for us. We do know that things like Bolo sticks and the Barracuda are professionally marketed, and they're anywhere from $125 down to $99 per door. Where one of these solutions that one of Mrs. Sharsham's group came up with can be manufactured right here in the district and with our own staff, which is a nice solution. So, you know, just to give you an example of some of the things that they're talking about, are really coming up with some ideas that, as we move forward, we begin to implement. You know, and Mr. Shershon and I talked a little bit today about, we don't want to implement things that, or suggestions that are really a never use item. Now, hopefully we never have to do a formal lockdown, but at the same time, we don't want to get into, even in a lockdown situation, are we spending an inordinate amount of money in certain areas that are highly unlikely for us to ever use. So again, we're trying to keep our costs down, but we're also trying to use some ingenuity on our own to try and make sure we can come up with some solutions that make a lot of sense. Some of them are practical things like identity badges, check-in opportunities. Some of the things are no-cost solutions, just simple procedural things that we now are looking at that are a little bit different than maybe we looked at them before. As we revisit and we sit down with larger groups rather than the small one-on-one groups that we've had to identify our safety things. So we had we've had excellent meetings at the building level. We had a very good meeting at the district level. We talked about all these solutions. We haven't come up with all the costs yet, but even the entrance ways were bigger, larger cost items than what we were figuring. South side we did, so I'll give you an idea. If you see here, it's kind of hard to see, I guess. I don't know if I hit the lights here, if you can see it. The front entrance at South side had a double set of doors. There you can see it better now. And what we did was we got Youngstown Mirror Glass to come out and move. Right here was the original set of doors. And it's the same group of doors, we just moved it down the hallway to the end, which then there's some cost associated with putting mag locks here and buzzing things. Oh gosh.
There you go.
I don't know what happened. Jason, what are you doing over there?
Where's the office on?
So the office is right here. Here's the office door, which was outside that double set of doors. And typically people would come through the two sets of doors and then blow right by the office. And we want to eliminate that entrance into the building way before we greet them here at the office. So we're looking at mag locks here, buzz-in scenario, fob scenario, etc., for the second set of doors, which in egress, obviously they got to be able, it's going to be a touch bar here to get out, because they got to be able to get out. So that was one of the items that was a fairly easy, quick fix that we could implement right away and change the traffic pattern of our visitors coming to the middle school. Dixon and the high school have a little bit different scenario. The high school, although we see people who come in and we can verify one, when we let them in the door, they come from the outside into the office. Dixon, on the other hand, is blind after they come in. So we're looking at some fob options. We may put some a fob on the gym door, fob on the entrance to that would lead toward down the ramp into where the multi-purpose room is connected to Kim's office. So we put a fob in there, then we have to buzz people in. We know they're coming through the right ways. Additionally, some additional cameras would be necessary to make sure we're getting people in the right way without full construction. One of the other items is the gates. So this is the pull-down gate. And these locks have been rendered unusable over the years. So a very simple, easy solution was this this bolt lock that bolts into the side on both sides, and then locks with a padlock here, because right now, because the gates have been ineffective in keeping people out in the evenings, and this is mostly for traffic in the evenings. We connect to the middle school and the high school. This is actually that middle school, high school connector, and now we can pull this down and lock it, and then they simply can't just lift it up and go through. They have to have a fob to go outside and come back in the building. So, again, very easy solution, using what we already have with a very small price to fix that. Jimmy Roberts took care of that. So that was an easy fix. So those are some of the things that our committees are looking at and coming up with that we can begin to work on immediately. Some expensive items that we don't have a lot of prices for at this point in time. One, we know a resource officer depending on the time. Right now we're very fortunate, Chief Gladys has assigned people to be in and around our buildings throughout the school days. So we're very lucky, but that can't last forever in their budget and what they do. So ultimately, we'll have to consider whether we want to hire a resource officer and whether or not, how many, and where we use them, and all that depends on amounts of time. So that the cost drives up for the more things we add to the plate of one or more resource officers, which becomes then a reoccurring cost for us to consider. So I don't actually have that worked in there, although I could tell you it could be anywhere from $10,000 at a minimal use to likely closer to $60,000 to $70,000 on multiple officers. So again, that's something we'll need to consider. 3M security window film. I know Kim had somebody stop by today to talk about what it would be like. Now these windows here, you'll notice, have, you can turn those on, thank you. Have mesh within the window. So the security for these windows are far better than some of the other windows we have throughout the district that do not have that. So most of the classrooms in the middle school and elementary have windows next to the door. So some type of security film over that window could reduce or minimize entry through the window next to the door that we're using from the previous slide to protect on a lockdown. So we're going to get some prices on that. Did he give you a price today, Kim, on replacement? That was window replacement though, right?
He gave me an approximate price for the 3M security film on my front entrance, my bus drop-off, my playground corner, and the corridor between the connector from kindergarten to bed. He said it's about 1,000 square feet. He gave me an estimate of about $20,000.
How much?
20,000.
Okay.
And I told him if that were a possibility, would he consider freezing it and still giving us the same good price?
So and those are the entrance ways. And we're talking about doing potentially all of the classrooms. That cost is just going to continue to rise. So again, how we spend money and whatnot, I need to get those dollars and cents to you, and we're not quite there. We're hoping to chip away at those by our next district-wide meeting, which is on the 20th. And then from that point, hopefully by the next meeting, I'm going to have some more definite costs for you, other than the ones I have on the paper now. We're looking at additional fobs throughout so right now we prop doors in certain instances. Rather than walk around, we can walk some distances. Probably one of the ones that makes it difficult because of no sidewalks is the middle school for recess. There's no fob on that door. So there's instances where accessibility becomes necessary to keep the buildings locked even when we're out, that are going to be part of what we're going to be looking at. I looked at metal detectors because that had been a suggestion at the high school level. that had been a suggestion to me from one of the community members. About $5,000 for a metal detector, one.
And
No, that doesn't include anything else, just one metal detector. So, just to give you an idea, let me pull up this website right here. So this is U.S. Department of Justice, and in one New York City Board of Education, in 50 of their inner city schools. Oh. I'm not going to let you look at it, apparently.
Just gonna read it.
The cordless mic.
I'm going to get wireless next time. Let's see. Okay. Okay, so again, U.S. Department of Justice. So what they have for just one of its schools, 2,000 students, which is larger than our whole district, mind you. But just to get an idea, for one school, 9 security offers for approximately 2 hours each morning, 2 officers just to run the initial portion of the metal detectors, and then 2 officers to run baggage, x-ray machines, 1 officer to run secondary portable metal detectors. So again, doing metal detectors the right way, there's a pretty significant cost. They have resource officers that are actually conducting that. There's also that cost associated with personnel. So it just kind of gives you an idea of scaling in terms of dollars what we would be spending to implement some of these things at our school district. Whether it becomes feasible or not, whether or not in Columbiana, Ohio, we need to walk through metal detectors. You know, if that's something that would be determined that we think we need to do, I would think that would be, in my mind, a little lower on the schedule for us than higher. So metal detectors are become an option, but are they an option really for us, and at what price? So that kind of gives you an idea, just thinking about, you know, some of the items that we have on here, are they realistic for us, and are they a fix moving into next year? So there's lots more to come. I mean, talking about paper blinds, those are all for lockdown things. We're talking about covering windows. We're talking about functionality things and keeping the cost down at the same time for hopefully a one event item that we hopefully will never have to use. But again, it's all about protecting and safety and being ready in the event of an active shooter. So that's just kind of a touch on that. I also wanted to talk to you a little bit. I'm going to give you more information next meeting on safety, but we haven't, although it's been a little bit more on the back burner, our webpage crew, including Mr. Boone. Mr. Boone has been integral in trying to negotiate some prices with some of these companies. We've narrowed it down to 4 real school-oriented webpage groups: Apogee, Blackboard, eSchoolView, and SchoolPoint. And you can see some of the costs, and each webpage has some of its strengths and weaknesses. Apogee is more of an app-driven webpage. The webpage is sort of secondary to the development of the web page, but it is all mobily driven, which in some sense is sort of looking forward in the future of what I think how lots of this stuff is going to be driven. On the downside for them is the initial cost is extremely high to set up, and their annual review is moderate. So really what drives us, not only from a web page standpoint to increase our productivity out of our web page, but also ADA compliancy. And I think it's critical for us that whatever web page development program we look at really kind of meets that need for us. That's part of also what's driving us to move and look at another source for web page. Blackboard I think Blackboard, if money were not an object, I would say Blackboard is one of the most tremendous products out there. Lots of the universities are using this, but they can raise their tuition and a couple bucks and cover the cost of whatever it is they want to do. We don't have some of those luxuries to raise revenues like the universities do, but their app is a tremendous product that integrates with their webpage. And I know that's something that we were really seriously looking at and had some deep consideration, and we're trying to, one, make sure we provide a good quality webpage, but at the same time connect to our parents. And really, this one does the best, but at a much higher cost with little to no negotiation on price. eSchool View, Ohio Business, they are school oriented. They have probably a moderate setup and a moderate annual rate, a little higher than moderate in comparison to all three. Dazzle integration. Dazzles are what we do with our student information system. It's pretty good, and it's a good quality product. Price is a little bit higher than School Point. School Point is really the one in which Josh Boone, Joe Warkle, our guy from Columbiana County ESC that we do tech-wise, Jason, really recommend from the most product for the price, where price meets the road in terms of functionality, in terms of what we're looking for out of our web page. Their app is kind of a weakness. However, it is something that they are working on. And I think they've been the one most willing to work with us in terms of price. Right now, the setup fee is $3,000, which is technically nothing in comparison to all these other groups. Depending on the app that we choose, they have a branded app, which really I think is probably the product we would want to go with. That really is easy to find, easy to use for parents to get on. It's sort of a one-size-fits-all, even the unbranded. The unbranded simply makes it a little bit more difficult to find the app to get to, and really, everyone knows when they're messing around with their phones with apps, you don't want to spend a lot of time trying to find the school or get to where you want to be. That being said, I still think from a web page standpoint, this gives us our best price, best product for the price, and let's face it, with most smartphones, you can really still get to the whole web page from your smart device. The app just sort of shortcuts to me. So I think when this is all said and done, I'm going to recommend to you School Point. I wanted to put some things on paper for you to look at, get some feedback from you, and see where we want to head. If you have some things, and if you want to spend some time on your own over the next week or so, I mean, it's going to be about a 12-week process once we decide we want to go with one of these products. Development, working with them, transitioning our current page, transitioning all of our information. I know I didn't read all this on the paper. I know you can read and see it. There are some other advantages to some of the other ones. There are some other weaknesses for the other ones. I think maybe Jason, if you want to comment, kind of what you were thinking from tech-wise.
Tech-wise, I really feel that School Point was, well, from a financial standpoint, they were the most willing to work with us, negotiate on price, explaining to all four of them that we're a pretty small school, not lots of funds to throw at it. They were the only one really willing to come down with a price drop that was very, very specific, or dramatic. They probably have one of the best training programs. Training is free every time you have new staff come on board. They will send someone else out, or they'll do a train-the-trainer. So that's really nice for ADA compliance. Probably the best out of all four of them, and with the new ADA compliance laws coming down the pike. I think that from a tech standpoint, it's going to be a lot easier to, all of them promise that the main template will be ADA compliant. This one gives you the tools to make sure that as staff is adding content, that you're still maintaining that ADA compliance. So I think that that's pretty important as well. The fact that School Point has so many local districts, we have a really nice network of other techs in the area that if we run into an issue, they've probably already seen whatever the issue is, or can at least help us go through near whatever they had simulated in order to solve the problem.
Is there schools around here that are using it now?
What's
Do you
that?
know?
Yes. The large majority of schools in the area are using that, which is an advantage as far as support. You could consider it a disadvantage as far as all the web pages looking the same. They do have a lot of templates out, and they just came out with 10 to 15 additional templates. So once we narrow down to we know what vendor, that would be the next step, looking at the number of templates that are out there. And coming up with something that we feel would appeal to everybody that would use the website, be user-friendly, but also a little bit different, or a lot different, depending on your standpoint, to kind of set us apart from everybody else.
Is there anybody around here that still uses just making up their own webpage that you know of?
We're one of the last.
Okay, that was just my question.
When you look at the different web pages, and you could go to all of them, at the bottom, typically the bottom right, some of them are the bottom left, they'll show you powered with School Point, A with School Point, powered by eSchool View. Almost all of them have some type of content management system at this point.
Well, in fairness though, not a lot of districts have kept the same technology person that can and has the
Right.
ability
That's what I was just
to
going to say.
do
But we
web
had that
pages.
ability.
So, I mean, for us, it was sort of a no-brainer, at no cost, to have someone who knows what they're doing with it continue to function with it. When you change personnel and you change people or they move on to other places, then you sort of get crippled to the point where maybe that person was in charge of it and now they're no longer there. You can't hire in someone with that skill. They may have other skills for you, but they don't have the skill to continue to do what you're doing with your webpage. Then now you have to make that choice to change over.
That's a really good point. If you look at every web page, there are so many different ways to build, even if you're using the same tool to build a web page.
It's so many.
Knowing the file, folder, architecture, infrastructure, it would be better to start, easier to start over than to try to take over and keep that going. So, all four offer a content management system, the ability for us to easily train our administrators and staff and secretaries. The fact that everyone will be able to update this from home means that we're going to have up-to-date content, which means people are more likely to visit.
Which is huge, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's it, yep.
Okay, item number 5, Nutrition Inc. report.
All right, this evening I want to share something with you. It's called Youth Advisory Council Meetings. And what that is I go to the students and ask them what they would like to see on the menus, what they don't like to see. And so far this year, it's been very interesting, and the goal is to determine what can be done for them to come back into the kitchen to eat, instead of having the parents bring their Subway or Dunkin' Donuts, and which does not help my counts. So I just wanted to share little things with you guys, some of the replies that I got back. These are questions that I asked the students. Do you eat breakfast here? If you don't eat breakfast, why not? Then they write down some comments, and 9 times out of 10, it's my mom takes me to McDonald's. I mean, that's what we get. And the older kids they like the coffee. And I was thinking about this one, but we can't offer coffee to our students here because we would cut into the class that has the coffee shop. So there is a lot of school districts do offer coffee, hot chocolate, they have a whole coffee bar in the mornings. And I really don't want to trample on any toes in that area. So we've been coming up with new breakfast items. Like this morning I did donuts, decorate donuts. I sold 18 out of 22, which I thought that was very good for testing week. And also I've asked a lot of students, especially at the high school, we have microwaves out there. I don't know if anybody is aware of that, but a lot of students just like to come in, grab, or just heat up what they had leftovers for last night. They really don't like standing in our lines, which, I mean, our cafeteria, the dining area is phenomenal, but inside we just have issues in there. We can't run 2 lines or anything, so I believe that hurts our lunch counts as well. Also, for the breakfast, they wanted more funnel cakes at the middle school. The high school said that they would like to have more waffle bars, which we're going to have a waffle bar this Friday if anybody's interested to come. For lunch, the kids were complaining more that they would rather see meatballs than meat sauce. Now this is a high school and middle school, both of them talking. So, and our recipes of the month, I gave you a while back, I don't know if I still have it or not. January was meatloaf with mashed potatoes was a hit. February's was chicken buffalo grilled cheese. March we done, of course, the Easter dinner, Easter dinner and a burrito bowl. Those were a really good hit. In April we have coming up for the red pasta, and that's hopefully springtime. We'll be here by then for that. As far as anything else goes, I mean, everything's been, oh, I gotta mention this because they said that they really like the macaroni and cheese and the stuffed crust. And our new chicken patties. I don't know if any of your children said about our new chicken patties, but I hear they're a hit. I haven't ate them. So, that's my report.
Thank you. Sounds good to talk about food. Item number 6, principal's report.
My principal's report is in board share with my April May newsletter. There are lots of dates on there. School setup and roster verification has begun for the school. The next step will be staff linkage. We'll be meeting in a week or so to do that. In ETPEDS, all second round observation data has been entered, and now we're in the process of entering the student growth measures as soon as the teachers get all those turned in. After school enrichment is going great. We're in the black, so that's after teacher payout and after snack payout. So got to have the snacks there. Whole grade gifted testing has been completed in 2nd grade, and we're in the next step now. There were 17 kids who qualified to go a little bit further with the checklist from teachers, so we're doing that right now. Aiming high from the Recovery Center continues this month for kindergarten, and that will be it. They've seen every grade level at Dixon. State testing is going well. It will continue through May 4th. Kindergarten registration and screening is complete. We registered 60 students. K-3 diagnostic testing is currently taking place. The Terra Nova will be administered to the 3rd grade students that did not receive a promotion score in the fall of 44 or higher. And we have 7 students that will be taking that. Chase Dugatz, one of our 2nd graders, he's been working really hard going to modeling agencies and all different opportunities like that. His parents take him, and he is in every Rite Aid store in America. I put the picture of board share for you. When you walk into Rite Aid right now, they have summer fun on a yellow sideboard, and the top is a humongous poster of him in a tube, like he's in a pool in a tube, and he's one of our 2nd graders, and it's hanging in every Rite Aid in America. So I thought that was pretty cool. Area preschools will be visiting kindergarten in the next few weeks. I'd like to thank PTO for the spring parties, the father-daughter dance. We had 387 in attendance. It was really a nice night. Mother-son kickball is coming up, and PTO is also will be paying for all the field trips for the elementary building. I also want to thank them too for the testing breakfast this week. All of the 3rd and 4th graders that are testing between now and May 4th will get a free breakfast on the day they test. PTO ran their first ever jogathon at school to try to raise some funds. At Dixon, they raised $5,882. $2,200 of that was from sponsors that paid $100 to have the name on the back of the t-shirt. I would also like to thank PTO for all the parent volunteers this year. We have a humongous parent volunteer program, and I'd like to thank them for that. The April-May newsletter is in board share for you. There's tons more dates. I put all the grade level field trips and their destinations and dates, and our picnic dates all at Firestone Park. And our musicals that are coming up. First grade musical is April 19th at 2 o'clock and 6 o'clock. And the kindergarten performance is May 10th at 2 o'clock and 6 o'clock. The day before each of those is also a 2 o'clock school showing, which is a lot less crowded if you're interested in coming to that. And that ends my report. Thank you.
Thank you.
Columbiana Middle School Clipper Pride Report. I'd like to invite everyone this Friday, April 13th at 1 o'clock for our National Junior Honor Society induction. It will be in the high school auditorium for anyone that may be able to attend. I'd also like to invite everyone next Friday, April 20th, for our middle school production of Cut Cut. It will be at 7 o'clock in the high school auditorium. That's a production with 41 of our middle school students. So I'm interested in seeing how that turns out. Currently, Mrs. Rob Carney is planning our career day for 7th and 8th graders. We do that every other year, and I'd like to thank her for the time that she's put into that. Today we finished day 2 of our 8th grade English Language Arts state testing. Everything went off as expected, no major issues, some minor bumps in the road, paving the way for smooth 5th through 7th grade English Language Arts testing upcoming. And we will finish state testing on May 8th, so we'll have some hit and miss in there, but we will get all of our testing in. Currently in the process of setting up our math and science acceleration meeting, parent-student meetings for our next year's 8th grade students, whether they will be accelerated in math or science, and I'd like to thank Mr. Jackson for his time in planning that out and working with our accelerated students and with our teachers that would be supporting them next year. We're finishing up teacher evaluations and entering student learning objectives and SGM measures and beginning roster verification, just as Kim had mentioned. And after state testing, we will begin our blanket gifted testing for our 6th grade students. Every 6th grader, regardless, based on new state law, will be tested for gifted in a number of areas. I'd like to congratulate our students of the month, Sophie Davis, Daniel Gehring, Elena Kaiser, Dylan Hogan, Chelsea Chafee, Nick Gallo, Emily Scott, and Wyatt Landsberger. Also like to congratulate John Rhodes. As you may remember, he was our Geography B winner, advanced on to the state level and represented us extremely well during that state competition. I'd like to congratulate our middle school music students who competed in solo and ensemble this past week. Anna Joy brought home a number of honors. Flute solo excellent, which is the 2nd highest rating that you can receive. Piano solo superior, which is the highest, and a flute trio superior. Grace Davis, flute solo excellent and flute trio superior. Carly Hamilton, clarinet superior. Emily Scott, vocal superior. And Chelsea Chafee, flute trio superior. So congratulations to all of those students, middle school students that are competing at the high school level. So we're very proud of them. Our students have been gearing up for track. Our next track meet is tomorrow evening at home. And finally, I'd like to thank our PTO. Similar to the elementary school, they did the jogathon at the middle school, raising about $2,400 for the middle school principals fund, which will help offset transportation costs for field trips, beautify the school, things like of that nature. Also did a popcorn sale of $500. And finally, I'd like to thank my staff for helping out with, for the first time, we did a JO volleyball concession stand with proceeds helping out the middle school principals fund, and we raised $1,801 for that. So I'd like to thank them for helping out. Now when teachers need things from the principals fund, I have money to help them out. So thank you.
Thank you.
High School April Good News Report. Wildfire presentations. A few of the board members were at the wildfire presentation. Students from Mrs. Misos, Ravello, Wolf's class, made business presentations to a local entrepreneur on April 5th in the auditorium. The students had been presented with a problem by the owner of the business, had a couple weeks to work and do the research, interpret the data, and conduct a formal business presentation of their findings. The presentations I felt were very well done. They were very well received by the local entrepreneur. Doris Corda, who is, it's her company, who's trying to change education, came from Columbus to actually sit in on the project, on the presentations, talked with the kids afterwards. YSU, who sponsored Columbiana in participating in this, we want to thank them for the money that they donated towards our travel and trainings. The plan is next year, Ms. Misos, Ravello, and Wolf will probably do one of these through their classes once in 9 weeks. So we'll try to do 3 or 4 under her program. The first was a little shaky, and then by the time you do the 4th one, it's they're incredible. And those of you that were there, just the skills that they've gathered from doing the project was amazing. Also, just highlighting a few things that have gone on. STEM Showcase. Miss Marty held a STEM Showcase for science students on April 4th. Well attended. It was in the Commons. Guests could come view what's going on in science. Clipper Arts has had a great year between the art show. I'm not going to go down to individual winners, but art shows had some fantastic presentations. The art department. Clipper Music Departments competed in the Columbiana County Music Showcase, and the music department also went on their field trip. The 28th and 29th, students had a great time. They went to Chicago. Probably the highlight was they got to see the play Hamilton, which is one of the hot plays to see right now. And they're doing a great job. I talked to Mr. Miller today. I think, as he said, as of right now, he's hoping to get 31 8th graders in the band next year. So we're going to have a huge influx of students in the band. Clipper Sports, it's official now that Toronto has dropped out of the EOAC. Under league rules, they will compete next season. They'll do a full schedule next season, but that will be their last year in the league. Ms. Heasley at her meetings, myself at the principal meetings, Mr. Mook at the superintendent meetings. We're having talks about what to do with being down to a 7-team league. And the big winner so far, sports-wise, has been Old Man Winter. They've kicked everybody in the butt, not just the Clippers. But tonight, the weather's got a little bit warmer. It wasn't anything but balmy out there, but it was actually, you could actually go out and see a game. And the last I heard, the track teams are sweeping. So we're track, you never know how that is. You don't know whether you win till the next morning. But as of right now, the track teams are sweeping. The baseball team is 2 outs away. We're playing Lisbon, 2 outs away from beating Lisbon. It's a big league game. We really needed to win there. The softball team struggled, and Mr. Mook left. And as soon as he left, we hit a home run about 2 miles long, and they went crazy, and they won 6-3. So it looks like,
Who do they play?
Herdman. Oh,
Who do the
Lisbon.
play?
That's another big league game, Lisbon. So we finally got a little bit better weather, and it was a good night. So that's the high school report for the evening.
Thank you.
I can't get any more information.
All right. That's great. Is there any public input turned in?
No, not that was turned in.
Then we have no public input. Item number 8. I think we can bypass that. Item number 9.
I'd like to make a motion to consider approving the March 2018 financial reports. I'll second the motion.
Discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
Mr. Roncone?
Yes.
Mr. Clark?
Yes.
Mr. Karen?
Yes.
Mrs. Williamson?
Yes. Motion passes. Item number 10.
I'd like to make a motion to consider approving the minutes of the special meeting and the regular meeting held on March 13th, 2018. I'll second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Roncone?
Yes.
Mr. Clark?
Yes.
Mr. Karen?
Yes.
Mrs. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
Motion passes. Item number 11.
I'd like to make a motion to consider accepting the resignation of Chris Canal, head coach varsity wrestling coach, effective March 12, 2018.
I'll second the motion.
Discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Clark?
Yes.
Mr. Karen?
Yes.
Mrs. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
Mr. Roncone?
Yes.
Motion passes. Item number 12.
Make a motion to consider approval of the Columbiana County Educational Service Center Services Agreement for fiscal year 2019. The full agreement is provided with this agenda.
I'll second that motion.
Discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Karen?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
Mr. Roncone?
Yes.
Mr. Clark?
Yes.
Mrs. Williamson?
Yes. Motion passes. Item number 13.
I'd like to consider a motion to approve employment of the following personnel in a supplemental contract for the 17-18 school year as recommended by the superintendent, compensation in accordance with board-approved schedules as listed below. I'll second the motion.
Discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
Mr. Roncone?
Yes.
Mr. Clark?
Yes.
Mr. Karen?
Yes.
Mrs. Williamson?
Yes. Motion passes. Item number 14.
I'd like to make a motion to consider approving the employment of the following personnel as director, supervisor, or coach of a pupil activity program for the 2017-18 school year, as recommended by the superintendent, with compensation in accordance with board-approved schedules pending verification of all credentials. Outdoor education, Dan Banger.
I'll second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Roncone?
Yes.
Mr. Clark?
Yes.
Mr. Karen?
Yes.
Mrs. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
Motion passes. Item number 15.
I'd like to make a motion to consider approving employment of Derek Randolph as an athletic department game help for the 2017-18 school year, as recommended by the superintendent, compensation in accordance with board schedule.
I'll second it.
Discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Clark?
Yes.
Mr. Karen?
Yes.
Mrs. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
Mr. Roncone?
Yes.
Motion passes. Item number 16.
Make a motion to consider approving McFeely Lawn Care LLC to provide lawn care services as the needed. Estimate is provided with this agenda.
I'll second.
Discussion?
Any information on that? Our current provider has quit doing lawns, so we had new bids for that, and this was a low bid. Okay.
Thank you.
He was reading your mind. He was reading your mind. Roll call?
Mr. Karen?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
Mr. Roncone?
Yes.
Mr. Clark?
Yes.
Mrs. Williamson?
Yes. Motion passes. Item number 17, President's Report. Obviously, we've had a lot going on. Listening to the principal reports with the testing and the accelerated students getting tested for the gifted classes. We have all kinds of things, going on. We have graduation things coming up. I mean, this is always a busy time, with the kids and the end of the year things. And it's hard sometimes for the students to get motivated to come to school. I know I have two of them. The hollering up the steps every morning just gets louder and louder, but it's just as hard for, I'm sure, the administration to keep focused and to keep them on task. And we appreciate everything you guys do to keep that happening, especially when we feel like we're living in England and we have not seen the sun. And we look whiter by the second. So we appreciate all of those things. It was great to see the wildfire presentations. It was very cool. Obviously, my daughter was one of them, but to see the kids get up there, the first group was nervous, and then to see them progress and to see what they thought about each other's presentations, and to get that real working experience that you don't get in school. You can do all the presentations in the world in front of your class, but when you're doing it for a business, for a real person, and you have to present it to them, that's real life work experience that is great to see. It was really good to see them, and they thrived in it, and you could just tell their confidence level went way up. My daughter alone told me, she's like, Mom, it was, I was nervous to get in front of people, but it really felt good to talk to a grown-up and tell him something that, that we put together for him. So that was really cool, and I think it'll just get bigger and better, obviously. The art show winners, the STEM showcase, that's a very cool thing. What's going on in science is obviously important to a lot of people, and to let the people come in and see that. And just giving our kids that cultural experience with the trip to Chicago and things like that. We give so many options here at Columbiana, and that is a tribute to, the staff, the administration, and we do appreciate, the parents, the students, everybody comes together, and we're just a great community that way, so thank you. Okay. Item number 18, OSBA Legislative Liaison Report, no report. Item number 19, OSBA Student Achievement Liaison Report.
No report.
Item number 20, Columbiana County Career Center Board Member Report.
Of course, I have a report.
Of course you do.
Last month, we heard about the Veterinary Science Technology Program. We heard about what the curriculum is all about and what the career choices could be all about in that program. We also talked about, and actually the Career Center decided to retain a school resource officer. And that is probably something, Dawn, you're aware of or familiar with. There's a program being offered by the Columbiana County Sheriff's Department. And I actually had occasion to be out at the Career Center yesterday for a meeting and met the school resource officer. And interestingly, he's a sheriff's deputy. From his standpoint, it's not just that he's there for security, but he feels positive about he's getting to know the students, some of whom he didn't know before, but they didn't know what he was. He's wearing a uniform, and so do high school kids necessarily like cops? No, they don't. But he feels that it's a real positive program in that, not just the security, but the idea that the kids are getting to know him and what he's all about. So it was kind of interesting to hear that, because as some of you may know, I've had my doubts about the school resource officer program in the past. I'm open to change, though, in that, and that was kind of an interesting perspective for me to see. So that's about the end of my report.
Thank you. The
Welcome.
veterinarian thing is cool. That veterinarian program would be cool.
Yeah, it is.
That's awesome. Okay, item number 21, date of next board meeting, Tuesday, May 8th, 2018, 6 p.m. in the High School Media Center. And item number 22, I move to consider an executive session in accordance with ORC 121.22 for the sole purpose of consideration of any of the following matters: employment, investigation of charges, complaints, unless public hearing requested, matters required to be kept confidential by federal law or rules of state statutes, and specialized details of security arrangements where disclosure of the matters discussed might reveal information that could be used for the purpose of committing or avoiding prosecution for a violation of the law.
I will second that motion.
Discussion? Roll call.
Mrs. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
Mr. Roncone?
Yes.
Mr. Clerk?
Yes.
Mr. Karen?
Yes.
Motion passes. We are in executive session.